What's the matter with you?
I can't swim!
Why, are you crazy? The fall will probably kill you.
For over half a century, Paul Newman wasn't just a movie star. He was the definition of class, charm, and quiet rebellion. With those piercing blue eyes and a heart that burned for something more than fame, he redefined what it meant to be a Hollywood legend. From his early struggles to the roles that made him immortal, Newman lived a life full of triumph, tragedy, and purpose. These are the 10 defining moments that turned an ambitious young actor into a timeless icon. And if you've ever admired Paul Newman, hit that like button as a tribute and share your favorite performance below. By the mid-1980s, Paul Newman was no longer the young rebel with the smirk and the cigarette. He was 61, graying, introspective, and haunted by the question that every actor eventually faces. Had his best days already passed? Then came The Color of Money. Reprising his old role as Fast Eddie Felson from The Hustler, Newman played not a pool prodigy this time, but a mentor, worn down by experience and regret. Across from Tom Cruise, he didn't need youth or bravado to dominate the screen. Every glance, every pause, every quiet sigh carried decades of history. When Newman finally won his first and only Academy Award for the performance, it felt less like Hollywood's recognition and more like an apology for taking so long to see the depth beneath the cool. This wasn't the victory of a man chasing fame. It was the redemption of an artist who had already found it and learned to let it go. Before he became Hollywood's elder statesman, Paul Newman embodied something rawer, a quiet defiance that mirrored an entire generation's unrest. In Cool Hand Luke, he gave the performance that defined not just his career, but an era. As the soft-spoken prisoner who refused to conform, Newman turned rebellion into poetry. Every smirk, every bruise, every sarcastic grin became a middle finger to authority. The line, "What we've got here is failure to communicate," wasn't just a script, it was a cultural explosion. It captured the spirit of the 1960s in a single moment. But what makes Cool Hand Luke timeless isn't the defiance, it's the humanity beneath it. Even when beaten and broken, Luke never surrendered his dignity. Newman made suffering look noble, not pitiful. The performance earned him another Oscar nomination, but awards weren't the point. This was Paul Newman at his most iconic, the man who taught Hollywood that sometimes strength isn't about winning the fight, but refusing to give up. Sometimes two careers collide and make movie history. When Paul Newman and Robert Redford first shared the screen in Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, it wasn't just a hit, it was lightning in a bottle. Newman, already a seasoned star, played the older, wiser outlaw with that sly grin and effortless charm. Redford brought youth, danger, and the perfect counterbalance. Together, they turned what could have been a simple Western into one of the most beloved buddy films ever made. Their chemistry was so natural that every glance, every line, felt unscripted. Two legends discovering they worked best side by side. Critics loved it, audiences adored it, and the film became one of the highest-grossing movies of its decade. But more than that, it created a friendship that lasted a lifetime, both on-screen and off. In Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, Newman wasn't just acting, he was passing the torch to the next generation, and still managing to steal every scene. Long before the Oscars and the legend status, Paul Newman built his reputation on characters who chased greatness and paid for it. The Hustler was that story in its purest form. As Fast Eddie Felson, Newman didn't play a hero. He played a man addicted to winning. Every scene felt like a war between ego and emptiness. Against Jackie Gleason's smooth and silent Minnesota Fats, Newman's performance was pure electricity, the kind that burns instead of warms. The brilliance of The Hustler wasn't in the pool games. It was in the moments between them. When Eddie looked at himself and didn't like what he saw, Newman exposed something universal, that hunger without purpose destroys from the inside out. Critics hailed it as the best work of his career, and it earned him another Oscar nomination. But the real victory wasn't gold, it was identity. After The Hustler, Paul Newman wasn't just a star, he was an artist. This was the moment he stopped playing cool and started playing truth. By the 1980s, Paul Newman had already conquered everything Hollywood could offer: fame, awards, respect. But instead of chasing another hit, he turned his attention toward something bigger than the box office. In 1982, Newman launched Newman's Own, a small side project selling salad dressing made from his own kitchen recipe. What began as a joke turned into a movement. Every penny of profit, every cent went to charity. No gimmicks, no PR spin, just generosity. Over the next 2 decades, Newman's Own grew into a brand that would raise over $600 million for children's hospitals, education, and community programs. And Newman didn't stop there. He co-founded the Hole in the Wall Gang Camp, a summer retreat for children battling life-threatening illnesses, offering them joy and freedom they'd forgotten they could have. It was the rarest kind of stardom, one that gave more than it took. For a man once defined by coolness, Newman's legacy became something much warmer, proof that true greatness isn't about applause but impact. He'd spent a lifetime entertaining millions. Now he was quietly changing lives. Behind Paul Newman's cool exterior was something Hollywood rarely showed: tenderness. In 1968, he stepped behind the camera for Rachel, a quiet, haunting film about loneliness and self-discovery. It starred his wife, Joanne Woodward, not as a glamorous leading lady, but as an ordinary woman aching for meaning. Newman directed her with care, patience, and an empathy that revealed who he really was. Critics were stunned. The film earned 4 Academy Award nominations, including Best Picture, a feat few actors turned directors had ever achieved. But for Newman, it was never about prestige. It was about giving Joanne the platform she deserved, proving she was one of the most gifted actresses of her generation. Their partnership on and off screen became one of Hollywood's rare love stories that actually lasted. In a business built on ego and artifice, Newman chose loyalty. Rachel wasn't just a creative triumph. It was an act of love. The moment the world saw not just the movie star, but the husband, artist, and ally behind the legend. While filming the 1969 racing drama Winning, Paul Newman did something few Hollywood actors ever dared. He fell completely in love with the danger. What began as method research for his role as a race car driver turned into a full-blown obsession that would last the rest of his life. After the film wrapped, Newman trained professionally and began competing under the radar. By the 1970s, he wasn't a celebrity dabbling in sports, he was a legitimate racer. He placed second in his class at the 1979 24 Hours of Le Mans, one of the most grueling endurance races in the world. Even in his 70s, he was still behind the wheel, roaring through corners with the precision of someone half his age. It wasn't about adrenaline, it was about control. The same intensity that drove his characters now fueled his need for speed. To the world, he was the cool, composed movie star. But on the track, helmet on, engine roaring, Paul Newman was free. Before he was a star, Paul Newman was a nobody, with one of the worst debuts in Hollywood history. His first starring role, in The Silver Chalice, was such a disaster that he actually took out a newspaper ad apologizing for it. Studios saw a handsome face with no depth, and for a while, it looked like his career might die before it started. Then came Somebody Up There Likes Me, the true story of boxer Rocky Graziano. The role had been meant for James Dean before his tragic death, and Newman knew he was stepping into sacred territory. But instead of imitation, he gave transformation. Every punch, every glare, every emotional breakdown bled authenticity. Critics suddenly saw something they hadn't before, a performer who could channel vulnerability and rage in equal measure. The film was a commercial and critical success, and Newman's entire career pivoted overnight. He wasn't just the next pretty leading man, he was the real thing. That underdog spirit, the fighter who refused to stay down, never left him. Somebody Up There Likes Me wasn't just a comeback. It was the moment Paul Newman decided he was here to stay. When Paul Newman reunited with Robert Redford for The Sting, lightning struck twice. But this time, it was sleeker, sharper, and even more irresistible. Gone were the dusty landscapes of Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. Instead, the two played smooth-talking grifters in a 1930s world of jazz, gambling, and revenge. Newman's character, Henry Gondorff, was older, wiser, and far more dangerous than his boyish charm suggested. Every wink and half-smile felt like part of a larger game, and Newman made audiences love him, even as he conned everyone around him. His chemistry with Redford was effortless again, but this time it came with authority. Newman wasn't just the charming outlaw anymore, he was the mastermind. The Sting became one of the biggest box office successes of the decade, sweeping 7 Academy Awards, including Best Picture. But its true brilliance was in its tone. Effortless sophistication wrapped in friendship and fun. For Newman, it was proof that timeless style doesn't age. You can gray at the temples, slow your step, but charisma, real charisma, only deepens with time. By the 2000s, Paul Newman had quietly stepped away from the spotlight. His voice had softened, his walk slowed, but his unmistakable blue eyes still carried the same spark they did 50 years earlier. When news broke in 2008 that he had lost his battle with lung cancer, it felt like the end of an era. Hollywood hadn't just lost a star, it had lost its moral compass. True to form, Newman faced his illness the same way he faced life, privately, gracefully, and without self-pity. He spent his final years surrounded by his wife Joanne, his family, and the countless causes he'd devoted himself to. There were no staged photo ops, no farewell tours, just quiet dignity. When he passed, tributes flooded in from around the world. Actors, politicians, race car drivers, and everyday fans. They all said the same thing. Paul Newman made you believe good men could still exist in Hollywood. His art made people feel. His actions made people better. And even in death, Newman remained what he'd always been. Not just a movie star, but a man worth remembering. Paul Newman's story is the kind that Hollywood doesn't make anymore because it wasn't written in scripts or measured in box office numbers. It was built on quiet integrity, unshakable talent, and a lifelong refusal to be anything less than authentic. From the rebel who turned failure into fire to the legend who used fame as a tool for good, Newman proved that a man could be powerful without arrogance, famous without ego, and generous without needing to be seen. He didn't chase relevance, he earned respect. And when the spotlight finally dimmed, it revealed something rare. A human being who had played his roles with the same grace he lived his life. His performances defined decades, his philanthropy changed lives, and his love story with Joanne Woodward reminded the world that devotion could survive fame. Paul Newman was the cool hand who never lost his warmth, a symbol of strength, decency, and charm that time can't touch. A true gentleman, on screen and off. Drop a comment below. And don't forget to like and subscribe for more forgotten Hollywood tales.